Here we go. My name's Todd.
This is Cathy.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen Parenting Radio. This is podcast number, I'm pulling it up right now, 711. It's, oops, 711. I'm a little off. So if I'm off today.
7-Eleven.
And you know what they do on 711? I think you get free Slurpees,
Slurpees.
at 711 on 711.
Did they ever run out that day?
Possibly. Speaking of companies running out of stuff, we had a graduation party yesterday and we got balloons, and there's a lot of people that were a little perturbed because they walked in wanting to get balloons at the balloon store, and they're like, nope, you can't get balloons because you have to pre-order balloons because it's graduation weekend. And also sometimes we love Krispy Kreme donuts, and sometimes Krispy Kreme says, sorry, you can't have any donuts, even though they sell donuts, because they're like, you got to pre-order donuts.
You got to order them online. So basically what the first story you told, you said you need balloons. You went to the balloon store.
Yeah.
And said, and I had pre-ordered them, so Todd just got to take them and leave. But there were people in line, like out the door saying, blow up these balloons. And they're like, we will not do that.
Yeah. So the invitation is to any operational managers out there, increase capacity. Buy more balloons.
Or maybe they're trying to push people to mobile orders, or because like
you might be pushing people, but there's, maybe.
I go, if I'm driving through McDonald's, like, to get an iced tea, or sometimes we get breakfast there.
Yeah.
I will pull it. And the first thing they say is, do you have a mobile order?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I'm in the drive-through at McDonald's. I don't have a mobile order.
Yeah. Well, the whole pre-order McDonald's seems very strange to me.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm using it as an example, because why would I'm sorry, I'm messing with my hair. My hair's wet and I have these.
You should have put a hat on like me. You always mess with that one strand.
Well, it's because I got,
you should just cut that strand off. And that way it won't be in your eyes.
I just know what curtain bangs are. And
I know what curtains are.
I know. Anyway, basically going back to the mobile order things, it's just sometimes a lot easier to order things ahead of time than to expect to go into a store and ask for what you need. But that's your whole point isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Because usually that's what we do.
Right.
We go into a store and say, can I buy this? But literally, to Todd's point, we had another party on Friday. We had a lot of parties this weekend.
Lots of parties.
And I had to pick up balloons for that party. And I went in, and the person in front of me brought in a handful of balloons, like they were numbers or something. It was probably a birthday party, and set them on the counter and said, okay, I need these blown up. And they're like, we can't do that.
No.
And she's like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah. You have the helium. You just got to put this on the little thing, and
you're a balloon store,
and then press go.
I know.
Okay. So we are going to talk about three things. One is, we're going to actually, instead of talking about what we're going to talk about, how about we just talk about it?
Let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
We have this thing called Team Zen. Mm-hmm. I want to say hi to a few brand new Team Zen members who actually get a either a t-shirt or fuzzy socks from us. So if there's anybody out there that likes t-shirts or fuzzy socks, go ahead and sign up for Team Zen. It's $25 a month. Can't beat it. I want to say hi to Mary Ellen from Crystal Lake and Tammy from Redondo Beach, California. Thanks for joining the team. And two other quick things about Zen Parenting is we now have this ability for you to gift a Team Zen membership, whether it's for 1 month or 3 months or 12 months, and you think somebody might enjoy being on the team. I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can buy a gift card for somebody.
You literally, it's so cute. Todd and Brad, our tech guy, made it, and it's like a literal gift card, and you can send it to them just like Amazon, or you can print it. Mm-hmm. And you just, like Todd said, it can be, here's a month of Team Zen, give it a try, or even a year.
Yeah. And the other thing is, we're working on our YouTube page. We had to start over for a lot of different reasons. So we're reintroducing our YouTube page, and that link is going to be in the show notes here. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I should subscribe to that or like it or whatever, and they'll forget by the end of the show. So go ahead and just pause the podcast, do a search or just click on the link in the show notes and just subscribe. That way you get all these little clips of Cathy and I, and then you can also get the full shows.
Todd, I got to be honest.
Sure.
I am not a YouTube person.
I know
when I say that, I like that we're on YouTube. But Todd so I scroll through TikTok or Twitter to, get information, and Todd gets YouTube stuff.
Well, that's how I get my White Sox highlights.
Yeah.
That's how I get my pickleball instructional videos.
Yes.
And then let me just pull up my YouTube page. I'll tell you what shows up. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to all the people out there.
Because this is not a visual medium.
It says This is because what these algorithms do is they
send you
come out with ideas that they think might be interested in. And the second one is fix Achilles tendonitis.
Guess who's got Achilles tendonitis?
Guess who's, and then the next one is Fargo Chit Chat. The
we
movie
doing Fargo?
I'm just going to do that just because it's so funny. Remember this part, sweetie?
What do I look like? And I says, well, what do I look like? I don't arrange that kind of thing. And he says, but I'm going crazy out there at the lake. And I
remember that scene with
I
the two
do.
guys?
She's interviewing him.
Yes. So anyways, so subscribe to our YouTube page. But on Team Zen, I posted something on our community page, and this is what I said. In today's virtual class discussion, so we had a virtual class / discussion on raising healthy sons. We thought it might be a good idea to have space to list positive male role models in pop culture. Here were my suggestions, along with a handful of other suggestions. So I'm saying this to all of the moms and the dads who have sons, and it's a great way to engage in a conversation with them. By the way, did you want to plug in your computer? Or are you feeling okay?
No, I think I have plenty.
Okay, good. So you tell me if you've heard of these people.
So
sweetie.
Can I step back?
Sure.
Sometimes when you're talking, you're in your own stream of consciousness.
Imagine
so basically, I know. So
I'm not going to be in yours, sweetie. I'm going to be in my own.
Well, what I mean is you're talking as if people know what you're talking about. I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But basically Todd had this class that he taught on our Team Zen platform. So we teach classes on Team Zen, and they're not even classes, they're discussions.
We lead a discussion.
We lead a discussion. It's not like we have a curriculum, but we're leading a discussion on raising healthy sons. And then afterwards he posted in our Team Zen, because we have an app. And so basically it's like, Facebook or Insta, you can scroll through and read, or Twitter or whatever. And he said, what are the role models for our boys these days? Because one thing this is why I'm saying this, Todd and I can come up with a lot of male role models, but they're aged out. Like, meaning, you're not going to say to a 17-year-old boy, why don't you be more like Tom Hanks? Like, it's an old guy to them. Yeah. So Todd is putting out there, who are today's male role models, and who'd you get? Pedro Pascal. Yes, that was my suggestion.
He was the Mandalorian, but he's also on another show that I don't watch. What's the other show that everybody watches that we don't watch?
The one with I got it.
One with Pedro Pascal.
This is not, I was gonna say this is us.
Terry Crews from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Okay.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, who I'm a big fan of.
Correct.
Somebody said Prince. Now Prince is interesting because he's obviously old and dead, but he
that's a good selling point.
But I remember when he showed up on the scene, he was not what most people thought of when it comes to rock star.
Well, he's not gender conforming. I put him in that, again, I'm not saying their music is the same, but like Bowie, or Harry Styles, like they have a really eclectic, rhythm, or not rhythm. Look.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Long version. Nice.
You know the long version?
Of course.
I don't know the long version. Can they just get into the good part?
No, because this is so Prince, this part. Like, when you hear this is Prince.
Wow. I've never heard this version. Pretty good.
He's funky. Just another minute. I'm enjoying this. Ooh, it's going into alphabet.
It's alphabet. Oh, he's coughing.
Different song.
Have you ever heard this?
Oh, it's good. I thought he was thrown into another song.
Yeah.
My boss, Mr. McGee. He's so good. Oh my gosh, don't you miss this?
Oh my God. Whenever I think of Prince, I think of the thing he did for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. When he did the cover for While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Yeah.
If you ever want to see a person command stage presence,
because every other amazing guitar player was on the stage with them.
Nobody was looking at anybody else, because I think he was wearing this purple suit and this red hat. And it was quite amazing.
Well, and he just had, I know they come out with lists of the best guitarists of all time and everything, and I don't know where he falls on that list.
He's up there for sure.
But people, interviews that I've heard before, people are like, we can't touch that. Like, because it's not just about how well he plays. It's his own sound. Like, when that was going on the Raspberry Beret thing, he has this sound where you're like, I know that's a Prince song. And then he also on the stage, it's like the guitar becomes like part of his body.
Yes.
It's really amazing. And by the way, I never saw Prince in concert, which is so unfortunate.
Totally.
I mean, that is
I'll bet you he crushed it in concert.
Well, I have friends who did because they were from Minneapolis, so a lot of people who lived there got to see him. And
yep. Okay, continue my list.
Okay.
Ted Lasso.
Yes, good one. And everybody on that show, really.
Yes. Prince Harry.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Will Tennyson. I don't know who Will Tennyson is.
Neither do I.
Steph Curry. Steve Kerr.
Yes, Steve Kerr's a good one.
I'm gonna do this one. This one's Keanu Reeves.
Keanu.
And I'm just gonna play.
Keanu Reeves.
This is him and Colbert. Hold on.
Keanu Reeves.
So what he just asked him, Steve Colbert asked him, what happens when you die? And it's like a 10-second clip, but this is his authentic, non-thinking about reaction. And just the way, I just love Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
So here we go.
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
So Colbert has this questionnaire, what happens when you die? And and you could hear like the tears in his voice. Like it's at least for me, he is such a heart-centered human being.
What a great answer, because any other answer doesn't make sense because we don't know.
Yeah.
So basically all he can answer that from is from the living perspective. And what we know for sure is that people who love us will miss us.
Boom. Love.
Well, and Keanu has a reputation for being the guy that gives up his seat on the subway, the guy that gives money, the guy that helps people when he's passing by. He's got an everyman reputation.
Yeah.
So because he's John Wick, I think he's kind of important to this generation too.
Yeah. And then last two, a guy named Peter Atti. Yeah, he's some smart psychologist guy. And then Elaine, who's part of the team, she replied so it's just so you guys know, Team Zen is kind of like Facebook without the Facebook. I posted this thing and then everybody commented on it. Elaine asked her 15-year-old son, she said he couldn't think of any of one person really that I actually know. He could think of traits of other people I want to have. So we talked about those traits and the people he thought embodied them in some way. He did mention Steph Curry, another TikTok baseball coach named Coach RAC, whoever that is, and his Path strength trainer he used to see twice weekly. It felt reassuring to me that he had language around some of this. Not that his job is to reassure me, but as a parent, it's nice to know there are thoughts of substance in these teens, boys' heads. And he mentioned that being a kid is tough because adults that are men in general are disappointing.
Oh, that is so, that's so hard to hear.
Right.
And I know it's true. I'm not saying it's not true.
Is true.
I think that the thing when we get so wrapped up in things like winning and losing and political things, and we're like, that guy's, taking this person down, or I won, or you're what we're showing kids is such a bullying, negative viewpoint of what adults do.
Yep.
And I, sometimes when I'm walking through the world or, we just spent so much time with people this weekend, Todd and I did, and everyone was amazing. And people are so amazing. And then I'll go on Twitter and I'll be like, who are these? What's happening here?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've never run into these situations. Obviously I'm not oblivious, especially what I do for a living, I know, but I'm also like, why are these things held up as being things we want our, kids to watch? It's just brutal.
And then the last set are, they said, any of the guys from Parks and Rec, Andy, Ron, Chris, maybe even Jerry.
Yeah. We could say that about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We could say that about The Good Place.
Tom.
We could say that about, these shows that are written in a way that people have a heart.
Yeah. What's funny is Parks and Rec is such an old show now.
I know, it's so outdated.
Isn't it crazy?
So old.
So we're going to quickly pivot to another piece that Cathy and I sometimes do called Ask Us Anything.
Okay.
I don't do a good job of promoting it. So I just want everybody to know that there is a link and I'll post it in these show notes. If you have a question and you want Cathy and I to maybe answer it on the show or maybe in a Zen talk.
Well, let me say that differently.
Yeah.
If you want us to answer it on the show, you can go there and ask us anything. If you want to do that more consistently, then join Team Zen and then you can ask on a Zen talk.
And you can do it live too. Whereas this is pre-recorded.
Yeah.
So Cathy has not heard this. And what's interesting about this question is initially I'm like, okay, I know exactly where we're going to go with this question. But she kind of comes full circle. It's about 45 seconds. But
it's a recording.
Yeah, it's a recording.
Good. Yeah. So you can email us, or there's also an option to do SpeakPipe where you tell us.
And that link will be in the show notes of this podcast you're listening to right now.
All right, let's hear it.
Hi, Cathy. Hi, Todd. I'm on a healing journey, and I'm also a mother of a 5-year-old. I find motherhood is quite challenging, and my 5-year-old notices it. So how can I talk to her and even ask for her support at her level? And I want to do that in a way without compromising her sense of safety and absolutely not asking her to parent me. But just to be a role model and also like practically get support from her. So ask her to play independently while I have a rest. Thank you.
I love that question.
It's a beautiful question. And honestly, that kind of came up this weekend, didn't it, Todd? I was talking with someone who was asking questions about this.
So before you kind of jump into what your 2 cents is, first thing I'm like, oh, this lady, we should never ask for support from our kids because we're the parents and they're the kids and all that. But just the way she frames the question, she's already on this self-awareness journey. Like the fact that she's asking it through this lens of, I don't want my kid to think that she has to take care of me. And
well, can I just jump in so then you can continue? But then right away, all I wrote down on a piece of paper is just change the word support to understanding.
Yeah, there you go.
That's all you have to do. So keep going, but think about it in terms of instead of support, you're looking for her understanding.
Well, and that's totally true because I loved her example, and her example is, how about a little independent play so I could chill out for 15 minutes or a half hour, because that's not the kid parenting us. That's the kid taking care of themselves for a bit so mom can recharge her battery.
And having an understanding of other human beings, needs.
Right. So anyways, that's all I got.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go, was that the thing about this actually launches into the other stuff we were going to talk about. Okay. So let's just interconnect it all. So in answer to the question, and I'll try and like be focused on this and then I'll broaden it out with the other questions that we've gotten, is that to role model like what it means to be a human being and to be a good support system for our kids, they need to see all the different layers of what it means to be a human being. And I don't mean you need to act it out or pretend it. There's nothing inauthentic about
allow them to show up the way they show up.
Exactly. It's just to be a human being. And what that means is sometimes as a human being, even with the great love you have for your daughter and you love playing with her and being with her, there are times that you're tired and you need to be alone. Or there's times that you're tired and you may be with her, excuse me, but she needs to be maybe watching a show or playing a game or doing a puzzle or reading a book, that you get to, I'm saying this to all parents, you get to introduce your children to, this is what, when I feel this way, this is how I engage. When I'm struggling, this is what I ask for. When I'm tired, I rest my body. When I need help, I ask for it. The clarification, the needing help, we don't ask our children to help us, meaning we don't say, I'm struggling, kid, help me. But we do say, in the home, I will need your help because you are a community member in this home. So when we are cleaning up the books, I need your help because this is your book. And it only makes sense for you to clean up your book, because why would I clean up your book? This is your book. Like, and you don't say that. And again, listen to my tone. You don't say like, it, doesn't make sense. Clean up your own stuff. You're like, doesn't it make more sense that when you take a book out, you put a book away? It's just a really clean. There's nothing in it that's difficult to understand.
How you say it from what energy is
correct.
More important than the words that you choose.
And so then going back to your question is, instead, again, I'm going to say it again a number of times just so everyone gets it. Instead of asking for her support or to be somebody who like gets you and puts their arm around you and says, yes, mom, take a nap, you are instead teaching her to understand you. And she, because she's 5, is not always going to get it. You're going to say sometimes, I really need to rest. And she's going to wake you up 5 times. And that is a strength, that's a muscle we build as parents, is that we understand that we are asking for things that a 5-year-old may not completely understand, but you got to look at it in terms of this is a building block, that I am not going to never ask for time to rest or say, now I'm going to lay down and rest. You're not saying to your child, hey kid, can I rest? Is that okay with you? Because a 5-year-old most of the time is gonna be like, no,
if it's going to
not.
compromise my
Yeah.
ability to play with you, mom, I have no interest.
So instead it's honey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay down. I'm so tired. You know how when you're tired, you have to lay down. I'm going to lay down. You can bring a book, you can bring, maybe her tech time, iPad, whatever, and you can lay down next to me. And, let's set a timer or let's set the clock. And in about 30 minutes, we'll get up, or an hour. And when I'm saying this to you, mom, I don't know for sure that'll work. Meaning I've had plenty of times when my kids were little that I was like, I'm going to go meditate. And can you give me 5 minutes? Or please give me 5 minutes. And they didn't. They came in, still asked me a question, or I'm going to take a shower. I'll be out in 10 minutes. And they come in while I'm in the shower. The thing is I view it now in hindsight. At the time, it was frustrating, but these are just little building blocks of, I'm going to do these things. Here's what I expect from you. But because they're young and their brain is developing, sometimes they're going to do it well, but not every time. And even though you may feel frustrated in that moment, don't look at it as it's a failure or I'll never get a nap. Like, you're teaching them in real time how to, and then when they come in and ask a question, you may want to say, remember how I said 10 minutes? I will be out in a second. You don't have to then accommodate every need. But what I'm saying is, a lot of parents will say, how do I get them from coming in the room? These are human beings.
Yeah.
And they may not have they may have heard you, but not heard you. You know what I mean? Like, and we sometimes need to reset those boundaries over and over, just like the kid who leaves their shoes out. And then we say, please put your shoes away. And the next day you're asking again. You are teaching them through repetition and through boundaries, because yelling at them or being angry or giving up completely and saying, why bother taking a nap? If we were to put them into parenting categories, yelling at them and it becoming this demanding thing is what we call authoritarian parenting, where basically we're saying, I'm in control. I don't care where you're coming from. You're just going to do this because I told you. Completely giving up and saying, I'm not going to ask you anymore because what's the point? We often call that permissive parenting, which means you're not really asking them to engage at all.
Mm-hmm.
The middle place is called authoritative parenting, where you are asking for things or you are teaching them your humanity and these are emotional feelings and you're talking to them about it, but you are also taking their needs into consideration.
I feel like they should come up with a different word other than authoritative parenting.
I know.
Because it's too close to authoritarian. I just Googled it. It's a parenting style characterized by a balanced approach that combines high expectations and rules with warm support and responsiveness. It's considered to be one of the most effective and beneficial parenting styles. You and I don't subscribe to any type of parenting style, sweetie, but if we did, that would be it, right?
Well, yeah. And you got to think about these things as umbrellas, right? They're really huge umbrellas.
Yeah.
And so to Todd's point, Todd and I don't label the things we do. Like, there's no, when people are like, what, how do I be a Zen parent? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just talk
about
about,
me for it?
I don't know, like, because Zen doesn't have a definition. What I'm talking about are undefinable things. Like, how do we in the moment deal with things? How do we take care of ourselves? And these are ongoing journeys. So there's no answer. It's like the great paradox, right? There is no answer to this question. But if we really had to put our lives under, if we had to, authoritative is the big umbrella that, the things we talk about, it tends to fall under for this reason. You are sharing what you need to, you are taking your humanity into account, but you are also taking your child's humanity into account. See what I mean? So it's like, you can say, I need to rest, but you have to understand brain development wise, a 5-year-old cannot respond in the same way an adult can. They're not always going to remember. They're not always going they may need you. They may not have the ability to maintain that 30 minutes by themselves. And so what you're doing is it's like it's helping them practice, like grow their brain.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's helping you establish a sense of yourself along the way. I know that, as Todd and I have been doing the show for almost 13 years. And, we tend to focus most on the things we're experiencing ourselves. So we don't talk about little kids as much as we used to.
When,
we
have to
started
go back
the show.
in the archives.
But one thing that I know we talked about is that you're literally teaching them in real time how to interact with the world. Every conversation you're having with your daughter is teaching her how to not only have a conversation with you, but what it looks like to communicate effectively. Or you setting a boundary of I need to rest teaches her that it's okay to rest. Sometimes you saying, telling her, wait a second, I told you that I needed 10 minutes, and reminding her teaches her that you can have boundaries.
Yeah.
But there is no, my big but at the end of every sentence is it doesn't mean it'll work every time. And that's the patience that we have to develop in ourselves. Is we sometimes look at kids as, tell me what to do, I'll do it, and then they'll do it. That's not the way human beings work. Same with our partners.
Yeah.
That's
not establishing a growth mindset. That's trying to teach robots.
Yes, that's trying to, or like write code.
Yeah.
And humans are not code.
No, we're messy.
So, and things are different every day. So your question is beautiful, Mom, who wrote in. And I would just say that just to sum it up again, switch the word support to understanding. How can I teach my daughter to understand me? And then how can you offer her the exact same thing, understand her? And that mutual understanding and curiosity about each other is what builds a long-term relationship and allows people to make change, because people don't change when they're being threatened. People change when they feel understood. So when I say make change, she may be willing to say, okay, I will play by myself, because she feels fulfilled. She feels seen, heard, and understood. So she's like, okay, I can do that.
This is a little off topic, but one of my favorite things in the world is I love my naps.
Yes,
and
you do.
Usually when I'm napping on the couch, not always, if Skylar's around, she will notice and go put a blanket on me.
And where did she learn that?
Probably because I put blankets on her. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, this is the thing, like the whole idea, like the things our children learn, and they can also learn it from friends or aunts and uncles. It's not always us, not everything.
We have the capacity and the potential for the most amount of influence, good or bad.
We do. And there have been so many times that the girls have fallen asleep on the couch or in the car, and we cover them up or carry them to bed, and they have learned that feels good.
Yeah.
So if you give your kids that love and support and they feel it, they offer it to other people, and not just to you. They offer it to their friends, to a significant other, to, other people in their life. And it's really the whole idea of I'm going to yell at you so you become a kind person. That doesn't make sense, everybody. And I'm using that as a metaphor or analogy for every other idea.
Well, I'm just going to say this one more thing, and then we'll move over to the last topic of the show. I'm poloing with a friend of mine, and he was disappointed that his son got regressed right before finals, and half of his A's turned into B's, and he feels the need to teach. And he even used the word discipline, which I'm not a big fan of that word.
Half of his A's turned into B's because of what?
Because he slacked off during finals.
Got it. Oh, so finals.
Yeah. Right. So I'm always like, it's discussion, not discipline, and all that. And he, one thing I said, which I think is super powerful, and I don't know if we learned this from Julie Lithcott-Hames, or maybe he learned it from you, sweetie, and what I said was, think if this person who just turned his A's into B's was your nephew. Was that from you?
Yeah.
You came out with that?
A long time ago.
That's good, sweetie.
Thank you.
I feel like I may have heard it after you told me on another, so maybe your word is getting out there, because I feel like.
Well, we talked about this 7 years ago.
Yeah.
We did a show about it. I'm not saying I came up with it in the universe, but as far as you, this is something you and I talked about on a show.
And it's just such an interesting perspective shift, because it almost removes a lot of the parental baggage, and you just treat this person like a person instead of somebody that you must guide into the real world so that they could go make money and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and this came up in a women's circle a long time ago, because a woman in my women's circle was saying that she was a teacher. She was an art teacher, and she would go to class, and these kids who were having a lot of struggles, they were overly sensitive, and, because they'd work with art materials. And so sometimes they wouldn't like the way things felt, or they didn't like the way that, the things they had to do that were messy. And my friend who was in the women's circle was like, and I'm so patient with them and so calm with them. And she goes, and I give them alternatives. And I say, you don't have to do this. And then she's like, and I have a sensitive kid at home. And when my sensitive kid at home didn't want to do messy things, it drove me crazy. Yeah. she's like, why am I so different with my students? So in this women's circle, we started talking about like, who are the people that, you know, we started talking about nieces and nephews, how you know, when you sit down and talk to them, you're like, hey, what's going on? Tell me the things. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
Right.
And we're so
totally
curious.
different energy.
It's a totally different energy. Or like, you know, second cousins or neighbors down the street where you like know their kids really well. And why do we as parents have this like harshness with our kids?
How do you sum that up? Because I
do have answers to
I
that.
subscribe to it. I'm one of those people. If it was my niece, I would be so much more patient than if it was my kid. Or maybe on my bad days, let's say on my bad days, I'm grumpy and my one kid's disappointing me, and my niece, my one kid does something that makes me reactive. And if my niece did the exact same thing, it would be I'd be less reactive.
Well, we talked about this in the group and on the show that we did. There's lots of reasons, but the two most obvious reasons are, number one, as parents, we are the last line of defense with our kids. And the expectation falls on us to teach them all the things, to be there for all the things, to notice all the things. Not only do we expect that from ourselves, but society does.
Yeah.
So we have to be the people. So if they're overly sensitive, we worry about that and how they'll be in the world. The second thing is we love our kids so deeply, and they're almost like, unfortunately, sometimes like a body part to us, like a limb, like we feel like anything they feel, we feel. Yeah. And so we're having these experiences that are like beyond empathic. We're carrying the weight of the world of our children's lives on our shoulders, where when we're with nieces and nephews, we love them dearly, but we're not their parents.
Yeah.
So there's like that obvious, but the big but is, what I know for sure is that kind of connective relational conversation is much more effective with kids.
Yeah.
And so as parents, if we could learn to incorporate that, it doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't mean that you can't set a boundary or there can't be consequences with your kids. But I have found, and I will, I don't normally do this. I don't normally talk about, well, Todd and I say this and do this, but I haven't really struggled that much with having relational conversations with my kids and also setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will say, well, if I do that, then I can't do this. And I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
It's like people who say, well, my partner's my partner, but they can't be my best friend too. Why not? Like, I don't understand the limits we put on relationships. And I'm not saying you can't have other best friends, but why do we make these pronouncements about if you are this, you can't be this? And now I will say with children, I feel like my children two of them are adults now. They are like friends. I mean, I'm sorry, but we talk about everything, but I am still their parent. I'm not trying to be their best friend, and I don't ever need to be their best friend, but they are my friends.
Sweetie, you want to talk about best friends?
You just
Plastic. We are back. We are back. We are getting Doug back.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the...
You know what? That's what I sing to the girls every night before bed. Except I would have to say four best friends.
We tell our audience what that was.
Oh, that's from The Hangover.
Did he make that up in the moment?
That was impromptu as was.
Oh my God, that was so good.
If you guys like The Hangover on our Pop Culturing podcast, which you'll see in the show notes, we have a whole nother podcast, everybody. We did The Hangover and it was really fun.
And we're doing Field of Dreams for Father's Day. And we just did It's Complicated for Mother's Day. And I watched The Hangover last night before I went to bed. And
Todd, you were asleep in 2 minutes.
No, honestly, sweetie, it was like 14 seconds.
No, that's what I mean. I thought you were just about to talk about The Hangover.
No. And maybe this will be a transition to the last segment of the show. I led a men living meeting on Thursday. I had a birthday party for myself on Friday. My nephew graduated Iowa State on Saturday, and our daughter graduated high school yesterday.
And then a lot of people came over afterwards.
We had a big party afterwards on a Sunday, which is weird because our Sundays, sweetie, are usually very low key.
Very. That's like cleaning day.
And I honestly, I'm sure I'll recharge my battery, but I'm feeling old today.
My God. Me too, Todd.
I am so exhausted.
I actually yesterday in the middle of, it was post-graduation, so much emotion, so many things. And I hit a wall and I had to sit in the kitchen for a while with some of my best friends and I told everybody, I'm like, I have hit a wall, so sit with me. Mm. And then it was really weird. It was like second wind, you know?
Recharge your battery.
We buy I think it was like 9:00. We were sitting out by the fire. A lot of people had left, but there's still some people there. And I was like, this is the best I felt all day. And of course my sisters were like, well, that's because you're done.
Yeah.
You know, now you can just relax. But it was a lot of energy. So Todd, I just want to say this first, because I had to say this to Cameron, because Cameron had a headache through most of the party and she was so mad about it. I'm like, please, I don't, again, I'm never like, this is why you have a headache. But I often will say, consider the fact of the crazy weekend that we've had, that your senior year has come to an end, that all these people you love so much are in one place, that, she has this wonderful group of friends that she's, just loves so much, and that there's so much energy and emotion around this time of year. And I just, sometimes when we don't feel good or we feel tired, we're like, what's wrong with me? This should be the most, emotion takes a toll.
Yeah.
And it, it's like, it weighs you down, because you're feeling, even if you're doing your best to get it out and to grieve and to cry, emotions are energy.
Yeah.
Energy and motion. That's what an emotion is. So, Todd, it's no wonder, besides just the literal us being like partiers for the past 3 days, it's also just emotional.
Yeah.
Okay. So
all right, what do you got?
Okay. So I was in the shower just thinking about this analogy, because I was thinking about the fact that it is graduation time, and Todd and I are going through a lot emotionally, and so many people around us are. And it's just not just about graduating high school, parents whose kids are graduating from preschool or kindergarten or 5th grade or 8th grade, they're all milestones. Every year is a milestone. And I was thinking about, there's this guy on Team Zen who's having a baby next month. He and his wife are having a baby. And he's asked us on Team Zen, he's like, I'm having this weird experience where my wife and I are really busy all the time, and we're like having to buy things and do things. And I'm finding I don't have as much free time for myself, and I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, and the baby's not even here yet, And, he was just basically asking, what do you guys think about that? Or what should I do? And the bottom line is I basically said to him, everything's changing. Like, your brain is changing. Your brain is rehardwiring to become a parent. Your life and your time is changing. The structure of your day is changing because this baby is coming. And there's nothing wrong with that. And why I'm saying it that way is I think sometimes when we're transitioning or changing, we're like, how do I keep all these feelings from happening? I must be doing something wrong if I feel sad. I must be doing something wrong. Like Cameron, if I have a headache, I must be doing something wrong. If I feel overwhelmed, you're not doing anything wrong. It just is what it is. And I know, like when I first, when I had JC 20 years ago, and I spent the first month like being afraid to go out because I had a new baby and I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember seeing people go by the window and with their babies in the stroller. And I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. Like, how do I get the baby in the stroller? And now in hindsight, I have so much compassion for myself, because that's exactly, everything in me was changing. My life, my body, my daily experience. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. It just was what it was. And if we had more, maybe less worry about it and more understanding, again, just like this woman's question, maybe it would be less overwhelming, because I think a lot of times the reason we feel overwhelmed is because we don't think we're normal.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what that word normal means anymore, but we think there's something wrong with us,
Well, I wasn't planning to share this, but this, Peter Tatia or whatever, the guy that I mentioned, he's a psychologist, but he has this clip about self-compassion, which I think is pretty powerful.
Okay. How long is it?
I can't tell. I think it might be a minute.
Okay.
All right.
Single day.
Let me restart it.
The most important realizations I ever had when I was at PCS, which is what my inner monologue sounded like. I called that Bobby Knight. Coach Knight is going to strangle you if you make a mistake. This exercise that they had me do there was one of the most powerful things I've ever done. Every single day, 2 or 3 times, something is going to happen that's going to prompt you to want to scream at yourself. Take out your phone and record a message, but look into the eyes of your best friend and pretend that they made that mistake. What would you say to them? Hey, Peter, I know it's frustrating. You just didn't have a good drive today, but I think there's a lot on your mind today. And I mean, the first 2 times I did this, I was in tears because it was such a shift of how kind I would speak to that person. And in just 4 months of being mindful of this every single day, I don't even remember. It's so hard for me to remember Bobby's voice. This was one of the most.
So what I will say to that is that, and I love that, by the way, I think that's beautiful, but I'm even trying to take it to a deeper level of you didn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like, and I think the same thing he said applies,
Yeah.
but sometimes we make a mistake. It's very literal. We said something cruel to somebody, we dropped the ball, we forgot to pick someone up, and we really do have to apologize and also then in turn have compassion for ourselves. But sometimes just like, I feel overwhelmed, I shouldn't feel that way. Baloney.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay that you feel overwhelmed. Like, and you don't need to, you can do things to help yourself calm, like, go to bed a little earlier, but you don't need to solve it.
Yeah.
It's not, you can support yourself without thinking, wow, I really messed up, and I have a lot of experience with this again, with headaches. Like I used to beat myself up and be like, I didn't do it, like it's not something I chose. It's not, there's a lot of things in life like that. But this is my last analogy, Todd, is the thing I noticed in the shower is that, having a daughter graduate from high school and, she, like I said, there's just a lot of joy around her right now. And she's learned a lot of things in the last year and just had a lot of wonderful experiences. And it wasn't always that way. She's had many difficult times as well. And so that's why it makes this kind of sweet, where Todd and I are like looking at her experiences and going, this is what we knew would happen.
Yeah, this was the plan.
This was the plan. But along the way, there was like a mountain to climb, right? Like every person, it has nothing to do with our daughter. This is not an our daughter story. This is a human story of along the way. Picture yourself climbing a mountain, and it's hard and it's difficult. And sometimes you think you're going the wrong way. And sometimes a path ends and you have to find a new path. Took that from Dr. Campbell from her speech the other day. I love that, because sometimes a path doesn't work out the way you think it's going to, and then you take a new path, and then all of a sudden, I'm just cutting to the chase here. You're at the top of the mountain, where in many ways, her graduating and starting this new chapter at Iowa is, you're at the mountain, and then part of you wants to be like, well, why haven't I been here the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how it works.
No.
We get to the top of mountains when we've done a really difficult climb, not a self-imposed difficult climb. You don't have to take a different trail to push yourself, and you don't have to like put 10 backpacks on to make it harder. Life has its own challenges.
Yeah.
You don't need to make them up. You don't need to make it hard. And then you get there and you look around. And so some people will say, well, then that's it. Well, of course not. Because look how many mountains are out there, and you have to climb those too.
Yeah. It made me think of like the only way out is through.
Exactly.
And there's something else I was going to say about mountains. I don't remember. Who knows? My brain's shot.
Well, I know. Poor sweetie is so tired. But I just liked that analogy, because what I know for sure is I don't now look at my daughter and go, she's got it. She's done. She has to go to college now.
Yeah.
She has to go meet brand new people.
It's a whole nother
She
mountain.
has to start all over again. So she's starting on another mountain. Now, starting a mountain can be really fun too. It can be beautiful. You can see new flowers. There's new smells. There's new weather. So it doesn't mean starting a mountain is awful. It's all about how you perceive it and how you see it. But along the way, there's some difficult trails. But do you know that, rather than think there shouldn't be any difficult trails? Of course there should be.
Well, and one thing you mentioned that I think needs to be highlighted is, I think a lot of times, even me, sometimes I'm like, I will maybe manipulate a system to make it harder to make sure my kid learns the lesson.
Yeah.
And
you wear like a heavy backpack when you take a walk to make it harder.
Make it harder. I wear my heavy bag, my heavy vest. And what you said was true. Life is freaking hard and wonderful and loving.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to create the hard for our kids.
No, we don't.
Try going to school.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, school is 8 meetings in a row that you don't want to go to. That's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to be a toddler. It's not easy to be a teenager. Not easy to be a grown-up. And our job is to just my job is to make sure my kids know that I got their back. And a lot of people are like, well, I got their back. I just want them to do well, and I want them to get A's. Like, no. make sure that they know that you actually have their back.
Mhm.
Because if you're just another obstacle, of course they're going to resist. Of course they're going to remove themselves from sharing anything vulnerably with you.
Of course they're going to disconnect.
Yes.
They're going to be, if you are an obstacle in their life.
Yeah.
And I don't mean someone who challenges them and reminds them of everything. Like, obstacle is a really strong word. Obstacle means somebody who's judgmental of them, who makes them feel worse about themselves, who's constantly telling them what they're not doing, who's saying, are you getting all A's? Where'd that B come from? Like, if you are someone who challenges their existence constantly, of course they're going to try and go around you.
Yeah.
Like, in every way, shape, and form, hide things from you.
It's just yet another thing that you have to deal with.
Exactly. And the thing is this doesn't mean then you have to, parents always swing way too high, too far. And they're like, well, then I can't tell them anything. Of course you can, but have conversations with them. Ask them questions. If something goes wrong, ask them first. What happened? You tell me about it first. Well, you share with me first.
And a rule of thumb is the question word why is probably, I mean, you can use why, but it can really easily be abused and weaponized. Like, well, why'd you do that?
Okay. Right? So you know how we changed the word support to understanding?
Yeah.
You don't say to your kids, why? You say, tell me about your experience.
Yeah.
That's still a why question, but the word why, like Todd said, has a connotation of, I don't understand you. Why would you do this? Versus, okay, say they got in trouble or they did get an F or whatever. Tell me about this, because there's probably a pretty interesting story.
For sure.
Like our kids who, like, if they're struggling or they, got a bad test, there's usually, and sometimes it's about they didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about I studied the wrong thing. Sometimes it's about the teacher didn't tell us what was on it.
Yeah.
I don't then call the teacher and say, this isn't deserved, but it's a good way to say to my kid, yeah, sometimes that happens, So I know we're finishing up, but again, I want to end on the note of, in your own life and in your kids' life, see life as this beautiful journey of, I don't even love mountain climbing. I just like the visual of it, that sometimes we're at the top of a mountain and we're not supposed to stay there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean then we have to start all over in every way, because we've already climbed a mountain. So we know we can do it.
Yeah.
So the next mountain is more enjoyable, more fun, maybe less overwhelming. But there are more to climb, and we don't want to stay on the top of that mountain. We want lots of life experiences.
Yeah.
And so every year I think about, okay, there's going to be some times when I'm on top of a mountain and sometimes when I'm starting over. And if you don't want to think of it as mountain climbing, think about it as a hike, a walk, a journey. Maybe it's from one flat place to another flat place. But I think when we're standing on a mountain, we look over.
Sure.
It's like you can see the beauty of the world. So for those of you going through graduations, changes, it's okay. Like, we're with you. Like, we're all doing this, and the common humanity piece, I think, really helps.
Sure. I want to thank our partner, Jeremy Kraft. I saw him on Friday. He was at my house.
Yes.
He does painting and remodeling throughout the Chicagoland area. So if you're in the Chicagoland area, you got any projects around, give him a call, 630-956-1800. Cathy's got an amazing book called Zen Parenting. Order it. Buy it for the dad for Father's Day.
Yeah, all the things we talk about in the show, if you want it all put together in one book, we got it.
Team Zen, don't forget about that. $25 a month, cancel at any time. Men Living, Todd Adams coaching, one-on-one coaching for guys, lots of different things cooking. So all the links can be found on our resources page, which is in the podcast show notes below. Everybody just keep on trucking. Let's bring in our beautiful music.
We love you, everybody. Thanks for listening.
That's right. Adios.